Hey guys, welcome back to the Daily Dreamer. How many of you guys out there are finding yourselves more tired than normal lately? How many of you guys have been having bursts of energy? Yeah, the crazy influx of energies, the new moon, the full moon, everything, the last portal. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Yeah, guys, got to watch yourself. You'll get spun up if you don't know what's going on. So keeping yourself centered and balanced, that's the key, folks. 5 minutes a day, we know that. That said, let's go ahead and discuss this dream that I had. It was a bit of an odd one, so I'm sure you'll get just as much pleasure out of it as I did, or confusion, one or the other. All right, so I come to, and I am greeted by this old job that I used to be in. I was there for a hot minute, so I knew exactly what I was doing, but I was being retrained in a department that I knew well. And nothing really, the thing is, nothing really changed. So I was being retrained in the shipping department. But every time that I went to go print out a label, I would blow a fuse. So after a while, that got to be, somewhat frustrating. And I was like, this is ridiculous. What's going on here? So I turned to go address the fuse problem. Okay. And as I turn to go address the fuse or change the fuse, I am then greeted by myself walking outside on top of acorns. No idea why there are acorns, but there I am walking. The next thing I know, now I'm in a house. I'm in a house that is very unfamiliar to me. It's not my house because nothing in that house even closely resembled anything that I would have to do with. So it was in shambles, it was dusty, it was in disarray, chaotic. But outside the door, I'm holding the door, and I wasn't really doing anything other than imagining myself pushing on this door. But I could feel the pushback from an entity, an energy, a person, whatever it was that was on the other side of the door. I could feel the pushback, and I didn't like the pushback. I knew that it was something not something I wanted to deal with. So I kept trying to keep it at bay, but it didn't seem like that was going to happen. So I look around and I see that there's a back door behind me. So what am I going to do? Obviously, I'm going to go maybe fear of flight, of fight or flight. I run, and I run back towards the back of the door, and I get outside the back of the door expecting for the energy or whatever it was to be inside coming after me. But instead, as soon as I turned around to see that there was nothing there in the door, I turned back around to run, and there it was in front of me. And it was not pretty. In fact, it jolted me back to consciousness. So what a dream, right? All right, so then from there I go into a meditative state. Let me tell you what I've come up with. Okay, I have a feeling that this has to do with something dealing with our shadow selves, the darker side of ourselves. That's the impression that I got. So what is that deep, dark side of ourselves, folks? Well, I'll tell you, it's that it is the side that we always want to hide from others. It is the deep, nasty traits of us in here, that darker, more twisted, sinister, maybe perverted, demented individual inside here that we repress from everybody out there. That's a shadow self. And a lot of us don't recognize the fact that we have these. Some of us do, and they choose not to address it. They keep it at bay. They keep it in control. And that's how we've gotten really good at maintaining that control, that balance, if you will. We can control it to a point. And we do that by manipulating our environments. Say, for instance, maybe you're afraid of rejection. Maybe you're afraid of you've got some self-doubt going, and you really need some compliments to make you feel better. So one of your darker sides, your shadow self, might be afraid of rejection. And so in order to keep that in control, what do? We go out and we gain it by giving a false sense of a compliment to somebody in hopes that we get that compliment back. Does that make sense to you? We compensate out there in order for it to come back. So maybe you want recognition for something that you feel that you deserve, that promotion, that raise, that bonus. So what are you going to do? You're going to go out there by getting it through a false sense of hope. You know, it's the side of ourselves that we often not only hide from other people, but from ourselves. A lot of people don't want to even know that they have them. A lot of people aren't aware that they have them. If you're not keeping yourself in tune and tuning into that to understand what makes you that way, or at least trying to make friends with it so that you can walk alongside of it, then folks, you'll never be able to bring back and control yourself from that negative emotion that's always trying to pull you down. In other words, the anger and rage and the disappointment, the anxieties, the worries, the mental strife that we get because we're disappointed, because we couldn't really control the environment out there to get what we needed to address that darker side of ourselves. So that can't be good for us mentally. And so what happens? It manifests itself in the more mental torment. And you find yourself becoming just more and more engaged in a repetitive cycle of negative emotions that keep you down. Not healthy. So once you're able to actually sit and address it, then you can bring it to a point where you can accept it. Once you're able to accept it, now you can actually learn to put protections in place so that you're not vulnerable, because really that's what your shadow side is. It is your vulnerability to these weaknesses that you feel you may have. And if you're able to understand them and bring them to a point where you can make friends with it and walk alongside, then you put protections in place for future times when those vulnerabilities may be at risk. And that's what we're looking for. We're learning to deal with our emotions and keeping them in check, keeping them in control. But to do that, it's not by putting out there a false sense of hope for someone else to come back to stroke your ego. It's not going to be found out there. It's got to be found in here. You have to come to grips with it. So the next time that you take 5 minutes to sit with yourself, allow it to come. Invite your anger, your rage, your selfishness, your greed, your anxiety. Invite it to come up. Acknowledge it. Understand why it might be there, hanging out. It's asking you to deal with it so that you can make amends, so that you can move forward. It's kind of important, guys, because otherwise you're just going to get stuck and things are just going to keep getting worse for you. So this time, when you invite all of your vulnerabilities up to talk with you, do it from a place that is not from rage or redemption or, trying to find a solution. Invite it up wanting to understand it first, why it's there, because then you can work on a solution. It's just a deeper, darker side of ourselves that is asking at this point to try to make amends with it. If you can understand it and you can learn to control it here, you won't need to worry about reacting out there to try to control it. Because out there you can't control, but here you certainly can. So guys, take 5 minutes a day. Anyways, until next stream, guys, thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me, and I really appreciate it. Many blessings to you.